everyone, and you're all very welcome to today's webinar, Easing Burnout and Exhaustion. You're very welcome to today's webinar with our brilliant speaker, Belinda O'Neill, founder of Be Inspired to Be. And this webinar is brought to you by ourselves in the Thrive Wellbeing Hub, as well as the Leinster Society. For anyone that's joining us live today, you might like to know that today is actually World Mental Health Day. So a really nice opportunity to sit back and enjoy some content over the next 45 minutes and take stock and take some time for yourself. It's a good day to do so. We would like to remind people that we do encourage your contributions, be it in the chat box through feedback or in the Q&A box. If you do have any questions, we have some time left at the end as well to put to Belinda. Belinda has also really kindly, as her role as an author, offered one of her books that anybody who comments or puts in a question, that we will consider you then for winning of the book as well. I myself am Francesca Fitzpatrick, and I work in the Thrive Wellbeing Hub. And I suppose on any webinar like ours today, which involves topics of wellbeing, I just always like to take the opportunity to remind people that if you are struggling, if you are in difficulty, or indeed if anything from today brings anything up for you where you feel like you might need a bit of additional support, there is help and support there for you in the Institute and through the Wellbeing Hub. That is everything from our confidential listening service, an informal chat, access to our more formal confidential counselling services. There is wellbeing coaching support, as well as a host of different online content and contributions from various different experts that we have available to our members and students also. We are very thankful today to have been able to partner with the Leinster Society to bring you this webinar. The Leinster Society are always really encouraging and supportive of the work of the Thrive Wellbeing Hub around your wellbeing. And so I am really delighted to be joined as well, before we kick off with our speaker, by Des Gibney, who is the chair of the Leinster Society. He's going to speak to you a little bit about that and also about introducing our speaker as well. So Des, it's great to have you here, and I will pass over to you.
Thank you, Francesca, for that lovely introduction. My name's Des Gibney. I'm a partner with McStay Chartered Accountants in Dublin, and I have the great honour of being the acting chair of the Leinster Society of Chartered Accountants for this year. We're delighted to partner with Thrive, and it's a fantastic resource for all our members, both past and present, if anyone feels the need to use their services. All their details are on the website of Chartered Accountants Ireland, and they will always have our full support in any initiatives they wish to take on behalf of members. So well done, Francesca, for organising this. I'd like to take the opportunity now to introduce Belinda O'Neill, who left her career as a bank manager in December 2021. Who worked in the same bank for almost 25 years, and taking a leap of faith, changed career in pursuit of her own entrepreneurial dreams. Belinda's an award-winning best-selling author, speaker, event facilitator, podcaster, and creator, and the founder of Be Inspired to Be. To mark World Mental Health Day today, we welcome Belinda to this session, which aims to impart a deeper understanding of burnout, its symptoms, and practical ways in which it can be prevented rather than cured. In the high stress environments that a lot of us work in today, burnout is an epidemic. And using Belinda's bought in, not burnt out approach, Belinda hopes to help us prevent it. So Belinda, I'll hand over to you, and I'm really looking forward to this session.
Thank you so much, Des. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you so much for having me. As Des rightly said, I do have a background in finance, albeit not accounting. It was in banking. I worked in Bank of Ireland for 25 years, and as Des rightly said, I took a leap of faith back in December 21 and took voluntary parting, as Bank of Ireland call it. Others might know it as redundancy. And I'm now the director of Be Inspired to Be full-time. So I'm delighted to be with you here on this very poignant date, the 10th of October, which marks World Mental Health Day. And the topic that we're really going to look at today is around burnout. And unfortunately, so many of us have experienced it. The average, according to a recent study by Locked On People Solutions, have said that 7 out of 10 people will experience some form of burnout throughout their career. So that's quite astonishing figures. So really the whole purpose of today in terms of the agenda is really just to highlight that you can sort of look after your own mental health and well-being, and indeed self-care and self-reflection is really, really important in doing that. So hopefully as we guide our way through the next sort of 25-30 minutes or so, I will be able to share some knowledge in terms of background and research into what burnout really is and the 12 stages of burnout. And maybe hopefully give you some sort of methods and tools and techniques that you can take away after this webinar to support your own mental health and well-being. This session is very gentle. You can see there that I've written in the agenda, it's, you know, very gentle time. So it is very gentle. It really is time to be, and that's what my whole brand is all about. Be inspired to be in the moment. It's not, you can be whatever you want to be in terms of your career, but it's really to be in the moment and to take those moments to pause, to reflect, to breathe, and to really slow everything down. So whilst there is a lot of content that'll be coming at you in this webinar, we will take it as sort of gently as we possibly can. So we'll start off with a little bit of gentle time shortly, then we move in and we'll talk around the 12 stages of burnout. And that's actually quite interesting in terms of what those 12 stages really look like. And you can maybe do a wee bit of self-reflection in terms of where you are in relation to those stages as we move through. Then we move into sort of the importance of self-reflection, and I have 3 pillars, and they are self-awareness, self-empathy, and self-care. I'll share with you my ACT daily method. It's very, very simple. It's very straightforward. I'll also talk to you around the concept of creatively cleansing, and indeed how it can aid resilience. And there's a lot of science to support how spending some time in the creative space can support your mental health and well-being and overall help to build resilience. I have recently trademarked that concept of creatively cleansing in line with my Be Inspired to Be brand. And then we'll talk a wee bit towards the end then around a to-be list. So I have no doubt that you all have really long to-do lists. I think we all have those to-do lists, but I just want to maybe introduce gently the concept of a to-be list running alongside of your to-do list. And then we just close off again with a little gentle time and indeed some positive self-affirmations. So hopefully that sounds all right to you all. I do look forward to your chat and your comments. As Francesca rightly says, just to show you, hopefully you can see that is my book. It's a piece of inspiration I've written for every day of the year, and somebody at the end is going to get one of those posted off to them to mark World Mental Health Day. So without further ado, we will begin, and it is very gentle time in this first little section. There's a little bit of music, and I will invite you to literally just take a minute or so of time to really focus on your breath, and just to slow everything down and be totally present in the moment if you possibly can. So here we go with some very calm music, and hopefully you can hear that okay. So what I invite you to do is really just to relax in your seat or your chair, or if you're standing up, and just literally try and ground yourself. That's what this is all about. So you're taking 1 minute to ground yourself into today's session, and as the slide says, it's time to be. So it's really just focusing on your breath. And I invite you to really take a deep breath in and hold it for 4 and then release on 4. So let's do that together. Take a deep breath in. And out for 4. We tend to hold a lot of stress in our shoulders. So hopefully as you release that breath, you can maybe feel your shoulders falling down, and let them fall down. I'll do that one more time. So big deep breath in, hold for 4, and release for 4. Release for 4. Try and let any tension, any stress that's been held in your neck or your your shoulders. Just try and let it all fall away. It's easier said than done, I know. Just try and be in this present moment. This is your time. Okay, so one more time, big deep breath in, count to 4 and release. All right, so that was literally just around a minute of time to be, and that can literally be enough just to settle us and to bring us back into the moment, especially if there's something maybe going on in the workplace that you just need to take a step away from. Just a minute or two to yourself can make a world of difference. So rightly so, the theme of our session today is all around burnout. As I said to you, those figures that the recent study that has been done by Locked On People Solutions has basically surveyed 700 adults from a range of sectors across Ireland and indeed demographics as well. And 70% of those 700 people have said that they've experienced some form of burnout throughout their career. And actually the largest cohort to experience it was aged between 35 and 44. And that came in at 38%. And their study also uncovered that women are twice as likely to suffer from burnout throughout their career than men as well. So I suppose what I want to just talk to you around is the 12 stages of burnout. This 12-stage process was developed by a psychologist, and this information has all been researched through Forbes.com. So the thing about burnout is that it's not really a case of where you move from one stage straight to the next, to the next, to the next, okay? You can be in any of these stages at any given time. And unfortunately, with the likes of stress and burnout, you can move from maybe stage 1, 2, or 3 right down to stage 11 or 12 quite fast, unfortunately, just depending on what the circumstances are. So I suppose just to talk through, and then I have a wee bit background information on them all as well that I'll show you in the next slide. So really we're starting off with excessive ambition, which we tend to all have whenever we join the workplace or start a new position or move on in our career. Then the second one is working harder, moving on then to neglecting our own needs, to displacing problems, to us then revising our own values, then to denial of new problems, withdrawal, impact on others, depersonalization, inner emptiness, and then unfortunately it can lead to depression and indeed full burnout syndrome, which whilst hasn't been fully recognised as a medical condition through WHO, it has actually been recognised as a syndrome, and it is all stress linked. So let's take all of these 12 stages and sort of understand them a little bit more, because knowledge is really, really important here. So, sorry, there we go. The first one, excessive ambition. So really burnout begins in a seemingly harmless way. And as I said, when we start our career and move on throughout our career, we want to do our best. We want to be enthusiastic. We want to be energetic, and we want to give it all we've got. Whilst many can relate to their ambition being a positive trait that supports their career growth, it can also sort of have excess inner drive within you, which can then stifle you and make you exhausted, I suppose, in many ways. It morphs into a compulsion to prove your worth to yourself and indeed to your peers and perhaps the company or the organisation. You don't maybe feel good enough, so you take on additional responsibilities, and you always feel like you need to be doing more and you need to be doing more faster. And on a personal level, I can fully resonate with that stage one. Because certainly when I joined my banking career, I did begin with a career in mind, and I felt I really wanted to prove myself. I joined at the age of 19. I hadn't gone to university. I had completed my A-levels, and I really joined the bank with a career in mind, and I wanted to do my level best. And I was probably one of those yes people And anything that was asked of me, it was, yeah, I'll do that and I'll volunteer to do that. So I definitely fully can concur with that stage one in terms of the excessive ambition, albeit not knowing that it was on this trajectory of burnout per se. So then the stage two, excuse me, working harder. So as you begin to say yes to more assignments and the hand goes up to take on more, you realise that you can't fit everything into normal hours. So as a result, work begins to bleed into your personal life, and that's highlighted for a reason. So work begins to bleed into your personal life, and that can be an uncertain period in terms of that work-life balance that we all try to seek. So you may answer emails on the weekend. Anybody do that on a Sunday night? Maybe in advance of Monday, preparing yourself, or put in 10 to 12-hour days to stay on top of your to-do list. That lovely list, the to-do list, which tends to just get longer and longer. You still find your job fulfilling, so you're really enjoying it, you're enthusiastic, you're energetic, and you actually get a jolt of satisfaction when you're praised for your dedication. It was great to see you doing that extra time. It was great to see you going to that event at the weekend. It was great to see that email you sent in your own time. So you're actually being, you're being motivated by that level of praise. And at the same time, work begins to feel like an addiction. Like you have trouble switching off and disconnecting in the evening. And again, I'm going to be totally honest with throughout all of this. That's what it's all about, being authentic. I can totally resonate with that stage too as well. As I moved on in my career in the bank, I became one of the youngest ever managers at the age of 25. And with that became lots of business and community involvement. But that business and community involvement was mostly in the evenings and weekends. And that was in the form of meetings and events. And I loved it, don't get me wrong, because I developed myself through all of that voluntary hours per se, but it was all linked back to the job and linked back to the bank in terms of why I was actually doing it. So you work harder, that's the stage two. Stage three then, neglecting your own needs. So you may default to prioritizing others' needs ahead of our own. And that cannot just be in the workplace, that can actually be in at home as well, especially if maybe you've got elderly parents or you've got children, you've got care and responsibilities as well. So you end up putting your own needs on the back burner and putting all of these other priorities ahead of your own needs. But this goes a step further in stage three of burnout, because you may sleep erratically, you may maybe skip meals. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, where you forgot to have your lunch. You maybe stop working out if you're into maybe taking walking or for some form of exercise. Maybe you put it on the back burner and I haven't time to do that now. You forget to spend time with family and friends. And I suppose maybe in that one, it's not maybe forget, it's maybe you displace. So you're maybe doing other things and maybe you're in the room with your family, but you're actually doing some work because maybe you're on your laptop or your phone. So the effect, your health takes a hit in the form of perhaps weight gain, insomnia, decreased focus, and a whole lot more. So again, I can totally resonate with that, as I'm sure some of you on this call can as well. So that's stage three. Now, if you think that's stage 3 out of 12, so we're at the very early stages of burnout here, and there's quite a lot in that in terms of how it can actually impact on your mental health and well-being, and indeed your work and your home life. So stage 4, displacing of problems. So your excessive focus on work leads you to dismiss obvious conflicts and issues happening around you. Deep down, you know something isn't right, but finding a solution or making a change seems too overwhelming. Instead, you avoid thinking about your concerns and refocus your attention on your professional obligations. But suppressing your feelings results in feeling of being more jittery and panicky, anxiousness. That's really where this is coming up in stage 4, where you start to feel really anxious. And I don't know if you've ever been in a case where you've completed a task and then you're questioning yourself. You're actually saying, well, have I done that correct? You start to self-doubt, really, and that's what this one is really all about. Stage 5 then, so your revision of values, you begin to realise that you've strayed from what's most important to you. So there's a bit of awareness starting to appear here, because you're starting to realise something's not right. But instead of facing the reality head on, you simply update your moral compass to be solely focused on your work. Relentless. You become relentless in your work. Friends, family, and hobbies take a bit of a back seat. So this is an extension on stage 3. Self-care is dismissed as trivial. Your entire self-worth is derived from your productivity and your accomplishments, or indeed your achievements. And again, there's been times in my career where I can totally resonate with that stage as well. Stage 6, denial of new problems. Now that your values have changed, you begin to butt heads with others. So there's a bit of conflict, maybe, people are starting to frustrate you in the workplace. You might perceive your colleague as lazy, or your clients are too demanding. You become increasingly intolerant, unempathetic, and cynical. You blame time and work pressure for your stress instead of recognizing how you have changed. So you're putting all of the blame purely on the workplace. But obviously a lot of it is coming and being derived from the workplace. But at the same time, it's actually how you have moved through these stages of this burnout cycle. Stage 7, then, withdrawal. And I think we all had some form of this, in fairness, during the pandemic. During this stage, you pull back from relationships. You probably can't remember the last time you had a conversation that wasn't about your work. Your social life feels small and non-existent. You seclude yourself and may escape through guilty pleasures. Stage 8, then your impact on others. So your burnout is now concerning your family. They notice a change in you. They notice that you're irritable, you're anxious. You may do things that impact on others, like, for example, forgetting to pick up your child from school. Hopefully that doesn't happen, or indeed missing a meeting. So things are really starting to have a real deep impact on other people around you. Stage 9, depersonalization. You feel like a shell of your former self. You feel detached from your own body, as if you were now an outsider watching your own life. Don't know if you ever had that feeling where you're literally taking sort of like the over perspective view of yourself. Every day is an exercise in going through the motions. So maybe you feel like you're coasting through life rather than living it. Whereas you once felt enthusiastic about your work, you're now negative or indifferent towards it. So you're not getting the fulfillment that you once had through your work. Stage 10, inner emptiness. You no longer see yourself as valuable. You feel you're not doing anything good enough. Start to feel worthless. You question your self-doubt. You've lost your drive, and you daydream about quitting, about moving or leaving your career. You may even turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, perhaps overeating, alcohol, or things like that to numb this void that you're feeling inside. Stage 11 then, and this is where it really becomes into sort of the medical side of things, the real deep side of things, where you really need to start seeking medical advice, and everything becomes a blur. So this is depression. Life was once colourful, but now it's grey and bleak. You're emotionally and mentally exhausted. You feel lost and unsure, and work feels completely devoid of meaning or purpose. And that leads us then into the full burnout syndrome, which is total exhaustion and unfortunately a breakdown. So your body may collapse, or you may have a mental breakdown. At this stage, medical attention is not only necessary, it's key at this point in time. Many professionals find that they need to take extended leave from their job in order to heal. So I suppose just, there's a lot in that, and I'm conscious of that, and I'm also conscious of the time. But it's fast moving from stage 1 right through to stage 12. And as I said, you don't have to move in sequential order through this. It can, you can be feeling in 1, 2, or 3, and then suddenly you're up at the 7, the 8, the 9. And the big part of what I'm going to talk about next is around that sort of self-awareness and self-reflection to try and prevent you getting further up the scale here in terms of burnout. So take a moment to reflect. What stage do you see yourself in, if any? This is important information and a call to action to act sooner rather than later. It's important to remember that burnout is not a linear process. You don't always go from one stage to the next, and the time spent in each stage can vary. So a lot of context there, and I'm very cautious of that. So in terms of self-reflection then, I want to talk about sort of 3 key pillars that I really base a lot of what I do in my writing and my work on. And that's self-awareness, self-empathy, and self-care. And this is back to hopefully giving you a few tools and techniques that you can take away with you to perhaps prevent you getting really severely burnt out. So self-awareness, according to the Oxford Dictionary, self-awareness is conscious knowledge of one's own character and feelings. Okay, so it's really being totally aware of who you are and how you are at any given moment in time. Self-empathy, the acknowledgement that you deserve understanding and compassion. And that's really, really important. And it starts with yourself, that actually when you are not feeling great, when something has happened, and when you're maybe going through some form of exhaustion or burnout or grief, something has happened, that you are empathetic with yourself. So it's the acknowledgement that you deserve understanding and compassion, because we all deserve that. And self-care, then, the practice of protecting one's own well-being, especially during periods of stress. And remember, burnout and stress, they're both interlinked. So self-care, the practice of protecting your own well-being, especially during periods of stress. So I have my own daily method that I have created and indeed that I follow, and it links into those 3 pillars. And really for me, this begins in the morning time, because I am a writer, and for me to create my book, I set my alarm at 6 a.m. every morning, and I wrote every morning. And this was the method that I sort of went through. So from a self-awareness perspective, the A in ACT, my daily method, which is called ACT, is acknowledge. So make time in the morning to acknowledge how you're feeling. What's your thoughts at that point in time? How are you feeling? Maybe you slept, maybe you didn't sleep. So it's really taking those few moments in the morning. It can only be a few moments. It doesn't have to be a half an hour. It can literally be a few minutes. Setting your alarm clock maybe 5-10 minutes earlier, and just sitting with yourself and how am I today, and acknowledging how you feel. The C piece then in ACT is care, and it's really care about those feelings, because your feelings matter. Okay, they're there for a reason, and try to understand what has triggered them. So maybe refer back to those 12 stages of burnout and the information within that. Has something happened in work the day before? Has something happened maybe at home? Is there something underlying that maybe you haven't dealt with and you haven't healed from? And that's that self-empathy piece. So really care about how you're feeling. And then the T in ACT is talk. So in a professional environment, I hope that you have a confidant that you can talk to, whether that be a peer or your line manager, or indeed you may have access to an employee assistance program, or indeed this fantastic Thrive Wellbeing Hub that is offered to you through the Chartered Accountants Ireland. So there may be opportunities for you to actually reach out and have a chat, depending on where you feel you are in terms of those feelings and what's actually going on with you at any given time. But talking is really, really important. But what's more important is having somebody that you trust and who's actually a really good listener as well, that you can offload safely to. So psychological safety is a term that's used quite a lot now in the workplace, and it's brilliant. And hopefully you have that safety and psychological safety to be able to talk to somebody within your workplace, or indeed a professional. So that's my daily ACT method, which links back into the reflective process. So hopefully there's something in that might help you. And then that leads me on to sort of what I do in terms of really self-therapy and managing my own mental health and well-being. People said to me when I was sort of writing and creating the words and the daily words, how do you go about doing that? And this concept popped into my head of creatively cleansing, because really what I was doing at that point in time, because it was back in 2017 when my writing journey began, and very quickly, just to tell you, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and it was a very shock cancer diagnosis. And really, I turned to writing to help me. And so really it was for me doing like a brain dump, if you like, of all of the worrying thoughts, anxious thoughts, the worst case scenario, and flipping the script into something more hopeful, more optimistic, and more positive. So this concept of creatively cleansing really came to my mind. Did a lot of research on it. The actual concept didn't exist, but the power of creativity in terms of helping us to manage our mental health and well-being, and therefore supporting us in stressful situations and building resilience is so important. And my thoughts around this is that try and get involved in something in the creative space, and there's a range of things that you can do. So the power of creatively cleansing, and it really is powerful. Jay Davis, who is a psychologist, and this is from a source called Psychology Today, I would definitely recommend that you check it out. So resilience is built through ordinary, everyday actions, not extraordinary innovation. So it's in very simple things and daily practices that we can do that can support to build resilience, and therefore help us in stressful situations, and hopefully get over the hurdles a little easier and a little gentler. So schedule time to be creative. For me, it's the writing, is the creative space that I operate in. But there's a range of things there: the drawing, the painting, cooking, baking, singing, gardening, crafting. There's a huge amount of things that you can get involved in terms of creativity. And these are some examples which can aid then creatively cleansing. And they're usually activities that bring you pleasure. So it shouldn't feel something on your to-do list. It should definitely be on that to-be list, which we're going to lead into next. And it really helps you to focus on the now, helping you to be present. And the science and the research proves that once we immerse ourselves in those joyous creative activities, it can help to relax the mind and therefore helping to develop resilience. Again, I'm conscious of time, so I want to just briefly talk to you a little about a to-be list, which hopefully you can maybe draft up alongside that endless to-do list. So here's just a couple of thoughts around it. So focus on your accomplishments when you ruminate on what you've avoided. So in every day, there's going to be something that you've achieved. I don't know if you've heard the statement about make your bed when you get out of it in the morning, because if nothing else goes right for you in the day, at least you've achieved something. So small things, it doesn't have to be climbing the big mountain, it can just be taking that wee step. And place as much emphasis on being in the present moment as thinking about the future. Okay, so sometimes we're very much in the past, we're reflecting on the back on what has happened, and we're then projecting to the future. And really the piece is around to be, and the to-be list is to be in the present moment, because really that's what we can control. Have lifelines, pause to smell the roses on the way to those deadlines. I don't know if any of you have ever taken a health day. I know that in most institutions now there's volunteer days, etc. But maybe even use a day's leave purely dedicated to a health day, rather than that personal to-do list of shopping and all the things that we need to do. Create a gratitude list of all the things that you're thankful for to offset your litany of grievances that stand in your way. So the blessings rather than the things that aren't maybe going your way. Stack your positivity deck. Get outside nature for green time after prolonged periods of screen time. So think green time to offset that screen time. And find things you can control instead of worrying over what you can't control. Okay, so don't spend excess time on all the things that you cannot control. Try and regain that control. But again, this is back to the self-awareness and the self-acknowledgement side of things. Step back and look at the big picture when you're stuck on those small stuff. Back to the gentle time, take a minute or two, go offside, go get a quick cup of coffee, just change your environment. It can have powerful impact. List the things you desire when you're stuck on the things that you dread. So that's around the whole goal setting side of things. And let yourself be drawn by passion instead of driven by pressure. And I suppose back to the leap of faith that I took in December 21, that one definitely resonates with me. So everything that I do now is very much drawn by passion rather than driven by pressure. And most importantly, breathe. Really, really important. So finally, to close off this session, a wee bit of homework, if you like, in terms of the creative space for you to take away with you. And that's the first two parts of that: who am I and how am I? So what I would ask and invite you to do is take a little bit of time and do a creative exercise, and it's really called Who Am I? Sounds very straightforward. Sure, I know who I am, but I'm an accredited executive coach, and this formed part of our training. And believe me, when you get into it, it's really far more complex than the question would allude itself to. So who am I? So really what that task is you blank sheet of paper, and just the first things that come to your mind if you're asked that question, who am I, you write them down. Then the second phase of it is you repeat it, who am I, but you're not allowed to repeat anything that you've written in the first section. Okay, so it's stage 2 of who am I. And then it goes to a third stage, and again it's who am I, but you're not allowed to repeat anything that you've mentioned in stage 1 or stage 2. And it's really, really enlightening, I can assure you. And then the next piece of that is how am I? And that's back to the ACT daily method. So once you've done your who am I, just take a little bit of time and just jot down. It doesn't have to be in any shape or form. It's only for you. It's you to you. You're writing you to you. And just how am I? Okay. And then maybe you can actually pinpoint if you are on any of those 12 stages of burnout. And then you can maybe decide what action you might be able to take thereafter. So to close off today's session, I invite you to literally in your mind we're going to close off with a little gentle time. So I want you to reflect on this little talk that we've had here for the last 35 minutes and reaffirm in your mind all that you are, because you are amazing. Remember that, okay? You might not always feel it, but you are. There's a little wheel there with some words that you can maybe pull out, but come up with your own creative ideas in terms of positive self-affirmations. And we're going to close off with a little bit of music. And really what I want you to do is to visualize those positive I ams in your mind. So again, you're standing, sitting, you can just try and ground yourself. Close your eyes, which is what I naturally do, but you do whatever feels right for you. Again, we'll maybe focus on the breath, the 4 in and the 4 out, and just like a video going through your mind, I want it to be on repeat of all of those wonderful I ams and reaffirm those in your mind's eye. Okay, so we'll do a couple of breaths and then we'll close off. So one more time. One final time. And we'll come back into the room. And I just want to finish with one piece that's in my book and it feels very fitting for today. And that is, be kind to your mind because your body is listening. And it does feature in a book, and I've written it obviously because all of my book is self-penned, but so be kind to your mind because your body is listening. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here. And I hope that you got something from that little session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Belinda. You covered so much. I don't know how you did it in just such a short space of time, but there really is, like, even in the comments there, people saying great takeaways, you know, there's something for everybody to take from that. And I think you really showed, even in the stages of burnout, how, like, you know, I was kind of scribbling down as we went, even like it's such a unique thing to each individual, and that whole idea that we can be at any stage at any time, or you could be racing through it, or it could become something that's happening slowly for you. And even just to see it there in black and white, I think is really powerful for people to kind of, you know, really take stock and go, well, is this happening for me, or is this, you know, part of my experience? I also love the idea of the ACT, you know, like, how am I, and using the ACT kind of process to really look at that. I think sometimes, like, I loved that quote as well by Davis, the idea that it doesn't have to be this big overhaul in our lives. Like, it's not necessarily like, oh, this is happening to me and I have to make huge changes and I need to do something drastic here. That actually it, you know, could be something smaller, and could be something, you know, but smaller but meaningful, that'll really have that impact. So yeah, just loved that. As I said, I was kind of, you know, scribbling that down as we went through. And I just wanted to mention as well the piece around the self-empathy that you mentioned as well. And I think that comes up an awful lot, even in my work that I have with members and students coming to us. There really is, like, for me, I think if anybody can take something from today, even, that's a really big piece to kind of look at, because I see that all the time from the busy nature of the work that our members and students are doing. And really just that idea of just being a bit kinder to yourself, and really looking at, you know, that you deserve that compassion, as you said, you know, is just such a lovely way to put it, and also just a really powerful kind of thing to consider, because we can take back control of these, you know, situations, and that self-empathy, I think, is really powerful, you know, to do that. So thank you, because that was all really, really brilliant content, I have to say. We do have some questions in, and we've a little bit of time, probably not to get through all, but I will jump in. You spoke about daily routines. Any advice on making the time to actually put these into practice?
Yeah, so I suppose, it's back to my writing journey. And when I decided, it was the 1st of September 2019, I made a personal commitment to myself to write every single day, because I wanted this vision of this book in my mind, and I wanted lots and lots of content. And like that, I was a senior manager in the bank, and I was going, how, I'm a mommy as well, how am I going to get this time? And believe me, I was not a morning person, hands up, I was not. But I said the only way that this is going to work for me is if I actually take a little bit of time before the daily routine begins, if that makes sense. And previous to that, I was up at 7 a.m. So I set my alarm for 6 a.m. So I became part of that 6 a.m. club. I'm not part of it fully anymore, but at times I am. But I did that for 2 years. I immersed myself in my writing 6 a.m. And I have to say, taking that time before the day begins, before the to-do list really kicks in, it really became that to be time for me. And the positive impact it had, not only on my mental health and well-being, but actually on my productivity and work as well, was immense.
Yeah. That's great advice, because I think a lot of the time we do look to after work, or like when I'm finished, I'll get to that. Whereas actually, like, just that idea of switching it up to, okay, well, before that day kicks off, like, where can I find that time? And it's hard to do. And like you say, it's hard to kind of, pull yourself up that bit earlier or whatever it might be, but so meaningful and so impactful then when you actually, do
Absolutely.
put it
And
into.
you're putting yourself first in the day, if that makes sense. You're
Yeah.
actually putting you first. And it's not about being selfish or anything like that. It's just about recognizing, do you know what? See, when I'm well, actually everything around me is so much better. So it's just taking that little bit of time. I took an hour, but obviously I was writing, I was creating. I'm not saying you need to take an hour, but even 15 minutes going and, listen to some calm music or rock music, whatever you want, whatever's going to just get you to be present for that moment that you've chosen in the morning time. That's my advice, but I know that's not going to work for everyone. But it's just trying to make sure that to-be list exists within your to-do list, and it's up to you in terms of your daily agenda best than anybody else. So it's just trying to find actually what would be the best time for me, and that might be 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night before you go, or 10 o'clock before you go to bed. To end the day, it's just, you need to figure out what's the best time for you, but it's creating that to be time along with all of the mirage of to-dos that we all have.
Yeah. And you've given great tools there, like you say, the to-be list, the act, that people can even just use that as their, starting point, and then who knows where it takes you from there. A few more questions. We won't get to all of them, but even just people obviously commenting, saying, how great it is, that this should be compulsory CPD. Somebody has commented as well.
I'm open to that. I'm open to
that. Absolutely. And somebody's asking about, where is your book for sale? So I've put a link into your website, but is that the best link?
It is. It's back. It's actually sold out, but it's back in stock, and it's www.beinspiredtobe.com, and it's sitting there ready to be shipped. So it's fully back in stock, which I'm delighted about, which is great. So thank you for that. Brilliant. Thank you.
And there were some others asking about the the links to your Instagram page and that as well. And just to mention as well, through your website, obviously they can get those links, but there's also, Belinda has a brilliant podcast that I've been enjoying. And again, even for anybody in maybe a more leadership position, it's really nice to hear from other leaders and what they're doing in that well-being space, and even around their own kind of well-being routines, and that really interesting listen for anybody that might be interested from that angle as well. So yeah, I think that is the most that we'll get to. And Des, do you have anything further there? I've seen you pop back on as well.
I just popped on to say a big thank you to Belinda and Francesca. What was a brilliant webinar. Really enjoyed it. It's the breathing that I find when you actually do it, it really has a big change on your. And I've read that it actually affects your physiology. Just 3 or 4 deep, slow breaths, and it's something you experience almost instantaneously. So it's look, there's a lot of takeaways for me. I really enjoyed it. And look, on behalf of the Leinster Society, a big thank you to Belinda and Francesca of Thrive. And just whilst I have members on, a reminder that the next The next CPD or Leinster Society webinar is coming up on the 16th of November, when we have an expert, Kieran Fennessy, who's going to talk to us about the alchemy of numbers and exploring generative AI, which will hopefully be a really interesting webinar for members. And keep an eye out for the link for that, which will be published. But many thanks to Belinda and Francesca for today's webinar. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Des.
That's great. Thanks, everyone. And for everyone who's joining, enjoy the rest of your lunch break, hopefully, and hopefully you enjoyed being with us here today. We can't wait to see you at the next one as well. Take care, everybody, and thank you.